Joining us now with more on all of this is Republican strategist Craig Fuller, a former director of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce who also served in the Reagan administration. Craig, thank you so much for being here.
Good morning.
Good morning. So former President Trump was booked and had his mugshot taken in Fulton County, Georgia. Here's what he said to reporters as he left.
We should be able to challenge an election. I thought the election was a rigged election, a stolen election, and I should have every right to do that. As you know, you have many people that you've been watching over the years do the same thing, whether it's Hillary Clinton or Stacey Abrams or many others. When you have that great freedom to challenge, you have to be able to, otherwise you could have very dishonest elections. What has taken place here is a travesty of justice. We did nothing wrong. I did nothing wrong.
So some strategists, Craig, have suggested this will be a short-term boost to his campaign with long-term negative implications for a potential general election. What's your take?
I find it very hard to believe that this boosts his campaign really in any way. You know, polling at this point is kind of a little premature. People have been away on vacations doing other things. I think when they begin focusing on the candidates running, that Trump looks weaker and weaker. There's very little he can do now, given what he's up against, to improve or grow his base. And the base has got to be wondering, can this man really possibly win? I actually think I'm in a growing majority of Republicans, the polls may not show it yet, but a growing majority, who are looking for the alternative to Donald Trump. Let's find a candidate who could win. And I think on that stage the other night, we perhaps saw a couple, but I just can't believe that Donald Trump can go through these trials and come out with more people supporting him than less. And as a matter of fact, his campaign fund is really a legal defense fund. That's where the money's going, millions of dollars to cover the expenses for him and others who have now been indicted.
So, Craig, the former president and his allies, some of them are alleging election interference and weaponization of the DOJ, as you know. In order for the people in the country to feel like political institutions and the DOJ are not being weaponized, you could argue the general consensus is there needs to be very clear due process of judgment without politics. Do you think we've seen that after these 4 indictments against the former president, as well as ongoing investigations into Hunter Biden?
You know, I'm one who actually thinks the process is working pretty fairly. Former President Trump is absolutely right. He has the right to challenge an election. They did it 60-some times in courts across the country. They lost every single time. His attorney general, a Republican of long-standing and a Trump appointee, his own attorney general told him he lost the election. The FBI director, a Trump appointee, is I think carefully going through these investigations. So there are a lot of people who kind of hope, I think, in the Republican Party they could prop Trump up. I just think the facts belie that. And the fact that on the Hunter Biden investigation, the prosecutor who's been at this for some time has now been given enhanced powers by the Justice Department. Suggests to me that they've took a hard look and decided that they needed to be a little bit more aggressive, and thus they're doing so. So I think it's very hard to make the case that somehow there's this conspiracy against Donald Trump. We saw what Donald Trump did with our own eyes, and he's now, you know, facing the consequence of that. And I think we have to let this process run its course. It's hard for me to see, again, that he's going to strengthen his position given what he's up against.
I'd like to squeeze this question in here, and thank you for that response. We've got about 20 seconds left. A lot of fireworks on that debate stage this week. Vivek Ramaswamy and Governor Ron DeSantis, they're going to be in Iowa campaigning over the weekend. What can we expect to see?
I expect the fireworks continue. Honestly, for me, the question in these early debates is where's the momentum? Who's rising? I think Nikki Haley is rising. I think a lot of people got to look at her and just said, this is somebody we have to watch more carefully. Ramaswamy clearly has had momentum, but he's flailing around as a Trump supporter. And I really think Governor DeSantis, who needed a big night, did not get one. And I think he's probably sinking a little bit. So I would look for the fight to continue. But I don't think we've seen the beginning of the end. I think we've seen the end of the beginning, and this field is going to narrow.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.